Good evening, another Tuesday evening for everyone. Welcome to Tuesday's Thoughts, another session this evening for about 20-25 minutes, maybe a tad longer, on how do we transform inner pain. The series has been looking at moral injury, and I'm just going to place it in a definition of moral injury in the chat box. Just waiting for my sound engineer to do her thing, just to let me know that it is. We're pretty much, StreamYard is pretty good actually. I'll certainly advocate using StreamYard in something like this to do broadcasts on multiple platforms. It's excellent really, StreamYard. The service is absolutely brilliant and the quality is really good as well. And they're improving all the time. So another session this evening on moral injury, and just wait for my engineer to do what he needs to do. I think, let's have a quick look. Anyway, so these are just hints and tips. This is no substitute for going to see your GP, your doctor, or anyone like that. So this is really kind of important that these are just hints and tips, and there are no guarantees that what I suggest will help, but you can try if you wish, and then in trying something you may develop a new idea, a new way of being. Okay, thank you very much indeed. I'm going to be getting on my way this evening, so let me just put into the chat box in terms of definition of moral injury. Each week I kind of change them just to give us a wide array of what it could be. In other words, I'll just put this here. Let's see if we can get this in. So moral injury, as we can see here, not anything pleasant at all. So it's in fact, an earlier post today, I said that moral injury is an assault on one's conscience. And here, in other words, it's an injury to one's values and conscience when a person has witnessed, perpetrated, or failed to prevent something that's happened. It compromises their values. In other words, what happens is when you participate, either directly or indirectly, you see something totally awful and evil, and that goes against everything you believe in. You did nothing to stop it. It makes a massive impact on us. And I just put in the final session from Susan Raffo. I'll just put this here, then we'll crack on for our session this evening. Yeah, so the contradiction, Susan Raffo says, of your own values is so impactful that it becomes its own form of trauma. So this whole thing about moral injury, an assault on one's conscience, and it really hits deep. So we're looking at how do we transform, coming from the quote by Richard Rohr: if we do not learn to transform our pain, we will transmit it. We transmit it on our loved ones, our work colleagues, and so forth. And he says, the most vulnerable is that we transmit it onto our children. And then he says something really profound, and he says that that we're in a society very, very quick to get rid of the pain, but he said we shouldn't really get rid of the pain until we really find out what is there, how it's taught us, what is it to teach us, or what we to learn from it. So that's really important. So one of the things, of course, my name is Jesuit Hall. Good evening, Sonia, and anyone else who's watching on YouTube. All being well, he says, inverted commas, I think I meet the criteria for Facebook, so hopefully next week I'll be back on Facebook. They want more than 100 followers, which I've got 300 and something. The account must have been active for more than 60 days. So I will try it next week. On my Dr. Jesuit Hall page, there's no facility at all to do the live broadcast at all. But I'm going to try on my Jesuit Hall page to see what happens for next week. So remain, I'll keep you posted and watch this space. So my name is Jesuit Hall, trained counsellor, lecturer, teacher for over 30 years, and I've been doing these broadcasts now for 4 years. So I've got a bit of a track record on social media, and all these are hints and tips to kind of get us through and the immediacy, but this is no substitute. So it's a disclaimer, no substitute for going to see your GP, psychologist, psychoanalyst, psychotherapist, counsellor to get the professional help that you need. I am a professional, but these are just hints and tips over maybe 20-25 minutes just to kind of help us to deepen our understanding of certain things. So One of the things about moral injury, of course, we looked at the definitions, is the inevitability of pain. And last week I spoke about a couple of things that we need to do, certainly with moral injury and any other form of emotional and psychological pain that we experience. And it's so difficult for us. The first thing we need to do, I said, is that we need to face our pain, or the word that we use sometimes is to confront. And the word confront in our Western thinking has a negative connotation, but the word confront means turn your face towards. Okay, and then the other word is to embrace. So embrace is to hold on to something tight, lovingly. And I'm suggesting, in terms of dealing with what we've gone through, it's to turn our face towards it and to embrace it. And I'll say a little bit more. So last week I spoke about facing your pain. I spoke about creativity, what we can do. And today we're looking at sharing your pain. There's this natural response to withdraw. When we are hurt, there's a natural response to withdraw for some people. Now, that is okay for a very short period of time. But this is one of the problems. If we run away into hiding and we build up walls to protect ourselves, understandably, this is what happens. We do protect ourselves, but then the possibility of experiencing joy and happiness again are pretty much remote. So we build these walls up to protect ourselves, understandably, but then it blocks us off from other life experiences. So it's really important that we get to the place where we begin to share what we're going through. But that's not always easy. So speaking, sharing, and so in terms of our healing, the process is speaking, sharing, and accepting the comfort, accepting the help that's needed for us to kind of get better or to recover. So one of the things, of course, we have to do, we have to learn how to deal with inner pain. And that doesn't come easy. Quite often, because of gender, men, we tend not to talk too much about how we feel. Certainly, and that's overlaid with culture, and also gender. In some cultures, women are not allowed to express how they really feel, and that causes enough problems of its own. So what I'm going to suggest today, in terms of sharing and facing the pain, embracing it, what I want to suggest to us, do we see our pain as friend or foe? Deborah, what are you asking me? To see the pain caused by moral injury or any infraction that's been caused to you, inflicted on you, how we see our pain is really important. If we see it as an enemy, we're going to do everything to push it away. But it takes a lot of courage and needs support to see pain as your friend, inviting you in. So pain caused by moral injury, because that's our focus today, is getting your attention. Remember the whole thing around Richard Rohr saying that we're quick to get rid of our pain, but I say no, let's not hold on to it, dwell onto it, but hold on to it to learn from it and then to share from it. When we have this emotional pain, taking medication is not a good idea, because really it doesn't deal with the problem at all. It's a bit, when we take tablets, when we have emotional or psychological pain, I'm not talking about a headache now, but psychological pain, it's almost like you're driving in your car, you hear some strange rattling noises. So what you do, that you turn the radio up so you don't hear it. At some point, your car is going to break down. So you turn the volume up on your radio or your whatever it might be, your Bluetooth. You turn it up, you're really kind of getting into the groove and all the rest of it. But the noises are still continuing and the rattling is still going on. And at some point, dials will come up, lights will come up on the dashboard, and the car grinds to a halt. We can't continue medicating ourselves, certainly when we've gone through a period of emotional injury, even though I know some of the horror stories I've heard and how people have been treated and how it's left them. It seems as though medication can be a first resort. But what I'm suggesting, if you can bear without painkillers and work through a non-medical approach, try it. Now, obviously, if things are getting too much, by all means, you really do need to go and see the doctor, because moral injury, if it's not attended to, leads. Now, moral injury is not mental. It's not mental ill health, but it can lead to depression and anxiety. And remember, from the very first session, I said that Jonathan Shea, the psychiatrist in America, who noticed the experiences of the returnees from the Vietnam War, he said it wasn't the PSD or the loss of the horrors of war, but it was a moral injury that led many of the soldiers to take their own lives. So moral injury is powerful in terms of what it can do for us or do against us. Now, let me ask you a question. If I said to you, tell me something about your best friend. Why is so-and-so your best friend? You know, what would you say? Please, if you want to use the YouTube facility for chat, Facebook's a lot easier. But anyway, we're not on Facebook today. I think even on LinkedIn, if anyone was on LinkedIn, please feel free to interact. Interact with comments or questions that are relevant to what we're talking about this evening. So if I ask you a question, if you've got a best friend, why is so-and-so? Why is Mary Jane? Why is Sid? Why is, well, is anybody called Sid these days? But anyway, why is Michael your best friend? I would expect to hear something like, I trust them, they're loyal, they're dependable, they're not yes people, they tell me the truth even though I don't want to hear it. And over the years, I've just known they're there. They've been with me through thick and thin. When I've had some real difficult times, they've been with me. And I want us to consider pain, and now today we're talking pain of moral injury, pain as your friend. It tells us the truth when we don't want to hear it. So pain tells us the truth we would rather not hear. By a guy called called Obi by Melody. He's written an excellent article, which I'm using some of the ideas. I always quote people and I say where I've got my sources from. So they may put forward an idea, but I will put my spin on it, I'll embellish it, and so forth. So he's written this article called Learning to Embrace Pain as Your Friend and Guide to Heal. So if he is listening at some point, please excuse me for not pronouncing your surname correctly. But his name, the person's name is Obi Bamidele. Obi Bamidele. And he says this: the family that he was raised in, they're very, very quick to medicate. Any pain, take a tablet. Any pain, take a tablet. And he said he had lots of headaches, but then as he realized, as he was taking these tablets, it wasn't dealing with the issue at hand. So what did he do? He reduced the amount of tablets he was taking, and he learned to listen to his body, and then he responded to what was taking place in his body. He said he listened to his body more, and this slowing down and listening to his body revealed the following. The causes of his headache was not enough water, excessive caffeine, stress, worry, and lack of sleep. So what he did, he decided to medicate less, slow down, listen to his body more, and in doing so, he found out the root causes of the headache. I've labeled, I just think it's a fascinating story, and I think maybe some people listening, they could identify with some of it as well. I call moral injury pain, MIP. I think last week I spoke about the door knocker, the doorbell, but I've developed the idea a bit more today, and some of us may identify with some of this. The pain that we feel is the door knocker, it's a doorbell. And is anyone at home? You see the pain as a stranger, and some of us will identify with this. You don't go to the door, but you go to the curtain or the blinds and you just part them slightly to see who's at the door. That's how many of us view our pain. We look at it through a crack in the curtain or in the blind, and we don't recognize the person. And those of us who were raised in the 60s and 70s, certainly in the UK, and I guess in other parts of the world, this is what our parents would tell us when they went to work. If anybody knocks the door, do not open the door to strangers. I was told that for many, many years growing up, and I'm sure many people were told that. Do not open the door to strangers. And in some instances, even if you know the person, don't open the door. But what I'm suggesting today for us is the knock on the door, the pain from moral injury. Open the door to this familiar stranger. Pain is not unfamiliar to you, but pain caused by moral injury may be very unfamiliar and also a stranger. So what you do, you invite the pain inside to come and have a conversation with you. You sit down. Would you like to make me a cuppa? Now kind of playing, I'm having a bit of kind of poetic license here. Let's talk. And there's a conversation, and it goes maybe something a little bit like this. So your pain, you personified it. As I'm sitting here with you, what are you feeling? And those of you who've experienced moral injury, you can write a list. There's anger, there's betrayal, you've been shafted. And in fact, one guy said to me recently, he said, shafted. No, I wasn't shafted. He said, I was knifed. He really said, I was knifed. Anger, the whole range of emotions, sadness, there's mistrust, whole range of emotions. List them all. Don't sweep any under the carpet. List them all. The conversation may be stilted to start off with, but as you talk more and more, the conversation will begin to flow. This is a conversation with yourself, and this is what I want to suggest that we do in our kind of conversation. Now, just listen to this. Right. This is what I want to consider. Sod it. Right. Now, I'm not using bad language. I'm not using bad language at all. S, sit with your emotions, sit with your pain, own your pain, and explore your pain. Right, I don't know where the D came from. Sorry, I don't know where the D came from. There must be. I got a bit of a brain ache. I got a brain thing, but the D was meant to be for something. It might come up in a bit anyway. So, S is for. No, let's write it correctly. Ooh. Right. I'm sure. I don't know why I said D. Anyway, so sit with the pain, own your pain, explore it. So you sit with your pain without judgment. You feel what you feel and do not offer a judgment, meaning I shouldn't feel this way. Don't add anything. Just be conscious and sit with the pain. Own your pain. This is what I am feeling. Anger, rage, disappointment. I've been shafted. I've been loyal to this organization. This is how I've been treated, abused. All the emotions, own the pain. That's really, really important. And in fact, the process, what I'm helping us to go through, when I say us, because I include myself as well, it leads us to a place of recovery. It leads us to a place of maturity. It leads us to a place where we can experience life at a deeper level. It's all beneficial, but to start off, it can be incredibly difficult. And so sit with the pain, own the pain, and explore the pain. What do I mean by that? Become curious about the pain. Why am I feeling like this? What has happened? And really kind of begin to explore what you're experiencing. So such questions, and I'm going to say more in a minute, such questions offer space, reflection, and clarity. Because sometimes part of the reason why we feel the pain is, one, we've been treated badly. There's no two ways about it. But sometimes we don't know we don't know what the pain is saying to us. We've not bottomed it. We've not earthed it. It's saying something important. It wants our attention, but quite often what we're responding to is how we've been treated. But I would suggest to us there's something else that's going on that's really important for your growing, for your learning, for your understanding, and so forth. So what is happening within? What triggered it? What was the experience? This is what Christine Bradstreet has said. Until you feel your pain will never leave you. You might hide it, you might sit on it, you might chuck it away, you might sweep it under the carpet, but it will always remain. And from time to time, it will pop up, causing chaos, and we'll sit on it again. But I think she's absolutely right. Until you feel your pain. I was talking with a male friend of mine a few weeks ago, and through conversation with other male friends where they've spoken openly and candidly about some of the experience, he said in terms of some of the men, it was an eyesore to see them in tears and stuff unmentionable on live broadcast coming out the nose and all the rest of it. Need I say more? But they've been able to kind of move on, because one of the things about being able to talk and share our experience, as horrible as it might be, people generally say, I feel better after they've done it. But during the time, it's horrendous. You know, one of the questions I say to female clients, if they've cried a lot in the session and the mascara's gone over the place and all the rest of it, one of the questions I always ask is, do you feel okay to face the world? Because sometimes how they are leaving is not how they came in. You know, nice makeup and all the rest of it. And then by the time they've finished the session, then the makeup is not as nice as it was. But that doesn't happen for often. That doesn't happen all the time. I recall, as I'm talking, I remember working with a student many years ago, and the first few months she wept in every single session. But as time passed and as things happened, the tears became less and less until there were no tears at all in the session. She got to a place whereby she got rid of all the stuff that had created so much problems. So until you feel your pain will never leave you. She said it will make you feel it in one way or another. Becoming curious is, she says, becoming curious is fuel for the journey. Let me just repeat that again for some of you maybe taking notes or not. Until you feel your pain will never leave you. It will make you feel it in one way or another. Really important. So questions. What am I feeling? Yeah, so when you ask the question, what am I feeling? You might answer it anger. Then say to yourself, what else? Write something down. What else? Write something down. Even if the list is 10 long, keep asking yourself what else. What you're doing, you are confronting the pain, and now this may not happen in a single time, but over a period of time, the more that you face it, the more that you deal with it, the less you'll deal with the pain very quickly, but it will not cause problems later on. And if it flares, in fact, it may flare up later on, but it may not flare up with the same intensity, and you'll know how to deal with it. So what am I feeling? This. What else? What else? Think long and hard. What is it I'm feeling? As you start doing the introspection, looking to yourself, what is it I'm feeling? And at some point, you ask the question, what is this experience teaching me? What do I need to learn from this? You may think long and hard and you write something down. What else? And maybe underneath all that, one of the things maybe you've slipped up on is your commitment to injustice. So what happens quite often, we start working in a place, we start off with enthusiasm and the culture, we can then become part of the culture, and then something happens, and then we have to step back, and in the way of moral injury, how it works, there's an assault on your conscience. Those deeply held values, which maybe you'd not been attended to over the last few years, begin to surface. This is your core value. What is this experience to teach me? What is it am I to learn from this? I've said that become a deep sea diver in your own experience, not to rubbish yourself, not to diss yourself, not to be hard on yourself, but to learn from the experience and become a better human being. We need to do that. I shared with you a few weeks ago a particular experience I went through, and this whole deep sea diving. Delroy, what was going on? Why did you feel that way? And when unpleasant emotions emerged, I made a list of it, and I really interrogated it, and it was really, really helpful. So reading is fine, but and doing something like this, but I would really encourage us, if you've experienced moral injury, going through a difficult time, I'd really encourage you, once you've left your place of work, I'd really encourage take some time out and just take some time out to sit back and really ask yourself some searching questions. And if you ask yourself the searching questions and then answer them, you will deal with the pain really, really quickly, and the intensity of the pain will never, you'll never experience in that way again. Not unless, of course, you find yourself in a situation whereby you experience moral injury again. However, the first time around will be enough to teach you so much. One of the things you might be alert to is you see the red flag straight away. And I remember I spoke about being at a job, at an interview, you go with your questions, your set of questions, and then if you feel or you sense there's a level of an awkwardness among the interviewers, maybe that's a good red flag for you to be saying, even if they offer you the job, go elsewhere. So reading is fine, doing this stuff is fine, conferences is fine, but reflecting on lived experience, exploring the pain, asking those questions. Why am I feeling this way? What triggered it? And one of the things that people will talk about was I to blame? Was I the cause of this? I've not heard anybody yet, when we've sat and spoken about it, I've never yet concluded that anybody else was to blame. You saw something, you spoke about it, we were told there's going to be an investigation, and I think there's a solicitor from America, I can't remember her name at the moment, she talks about fake investigations. I've mentioned it before, whereby you report something, you're told it's going to be investigated, you're invited to a meeting, then you realize you're the one they're targeting. And then what happens, I'm hearing more and more, what happens, you're a brilliant worker, you've been excellent, you've been diligent, you've been loyal, you've been faithful, and then what they get you on is performance. I hear it all the time. They get you on performance. Minutiae, things that are not important, things that were never raised at your appraisal, somehow they've found some stuff about your performance, and then the next thing you know, you're signing an NDA, and then you're out. And I am going to do a session on NDAs, because I think it's hideous, I think it's wrong what organizations are doing, and there must be some form of response, backlash that people at the lower end can actually do. So if we reflect on the lived experience, you explore the moral injury. These are, now what I'm suggesting is only a few things, but you're going to get more. There'll be depth in you, there'll be growth, there'll be balance in terms of you becoming more balanced as an individual, stability, a new direction, and a new purpose. Remember I love the quote by Marianne Keyes. She said there's pressure for people to turn every negative into a positive. But people must be allowed to say, I went through something, and as awful as it was, it has changed my life forever. I would suspect at some level, when you get through, well, I'm not too sure, it's a bit like grief. You never fully recover. You can't unexperience it because you have experienced it. But there can come a time, I suspect, in how moral injury is handled by you or the therapist or the friend, that you can recognize it as a gift, an unexpected gift. It wasn't wrapped up in nice paper. It was wrapped up in lies, betrayal, being dismissed, being accused, being a victim, being targeted. It's wrapped up in all those unpleasant things, but out of it, you have become a better person. So the recap, we looked at how to transform our inner pain, because we don't want to transmit it, and we don't want to transmit it on the people that we love. Last week we looked at facing the pain and turning. The word turn means, or confront, sorry, the word confront means to turn your face towards. And today we looked at sharing the pain, and we looked at various things. I don't know where that D came from, but anyway, so sharing the pain, sit with it, own it, explore it. That's really important in terms of what we do with the pain. So as I conclude, especially for those who might be listening who you've experienced moral injury, and remember I've said right at the very beginning, if I can scroll back, moral injury is, just to recap, it's an injury, let me just show it there, yeah, it's an injury to one's values or conscience when a person has witnessed, perpetrated, or failed to prevent an act that compromises the person's values or morals. I've also spoken about it, an assault on one's conscience. In other words, it's what happens when you participate in, either directly or indirectly, something totally awful and evil, something that goes against everything you believe in, and you do nothing. And sometimes you can't, because there's a whole raft of things riding against it. And then the final thing is this. The contradiction of your own values is so impactful that it becomes its own form of trauma. And then we looked at this whole thing of sitting with it, owning with it, exploring it, and some of the questions, and you'll generate your own questions as you begin to explore your moral injury and the emotions around it. Make a list, keep a journal, keep it secure, or if it's on a computer, put a password on it. That's your record or your inventory of your kind of recovery, your pathway of recovery. And the final question I'd want to ask to us today, whether it's moral injury or there's another work thing you've gone through, or you've experienced something, how could you become curious today? Curiosity is incredibly important. So how could you become curious today? Okay, that's it. 30 minutes or 32 minutes. Thank you very much indeed. How do you transform your inner pain? See it as see your pain as a friend. It's trying to get your attention. It's not your enemy. These are some hints and tips. If you find this helpful, please share it with somebody. But these are just hints and tips to help us begin the journey. If you need to see your GP, to be referred to a therapist, or privately, do that. It's incredibly important. I'll just finish with this quote from Christina Bradstreet, because I think it's absolutely important. Until you feel your pain will never leave you. It will make you feel it in one way or another. And if it keeps banging on your door and you keep ignoring it, sorry, not you, if we keep ignoring it, we will suffer the consequences of ignoring it. And that's maybe another session for another time. So wish you well. Thank you very much indeed for your time. Please feel free to share. If you need to contact me, please do. Here are my contact details. You perhaps would have them already. More than happy for you to email me or just send something through my website. Really great to continue the conversation. This thing about moral injury is insidious, and it can leave people, and those of you who have contacted me, it leaves people in a mess. It really does. But granted, and thankfully, we don't have to remain in a mess. We can come out the other side, and we can leave those languishing where they are in their toxic environment, and we can come out the other side a better human being. And if you're a better human being, if I'm a better human being, the more better human beings that we have, I think the world is on the road to becoming a bit more of a better place. Anyway, go well. Take care. Speak to you soon. And see you next week at 7 o'clock for another not exciting episode. Moral injury is hardly exciting. But hang on, who's this? Oh, brilliant. Right. Thank you, Sonia. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, take care, everybody. Wish you well. Speak to you soon. All the best. Bye-bye.